she's doing a lot of stuff, and if you're lucky, you'll get to see more of her this year. So Melissa, thank you so much for moderating the panel. To introduce the vets, Becky's going to take it from here.
Hello and welcome. I just want to start by thanking you guys all for coming and thank you for your service. So we're going to start by introducing Noah Smith. He's a Green Beret veteran, and for those of you that don't know, the Green Beret is a U.S. Army Special Forces, and he is currently contributor of the Foreign Policy magazine. He is actually the chair for the Veterans Fellowship of Service Corps. Apparently it's something we're going to learn about in the next few days, but I'm excited to hear more about that. Some of his deployments were through the Middle East. He graduated from George Washington University.
Go Colonials.
Yep, so Noah Smith. Let's see. All right, Pat Halsey up next. He's a U.S. Marine Corps veteran, and he is currently the senior manager of international sales for DHL. He was also a sales executive for Recall, and he is very highly regarded by his peers, and there's actually an awesome quote in his bio, so I recommend you guys all go read it.
I'm worried what you're about to say.
What?
About my bio, actually.
He graduated from Cornell University, so I'm guessing there's a little bit, friendship there.
VPs.
So that's Pat Halsey for you. Up next is Jason Mangone.
It's good enough.
Okay. I hope I didn't butcher it that much.
Practiced.
I did. I tried.
That's good.
Excellent. Crushed it.
He's a U.S. Marine Corps veteran, and he is currently director for the Franklin Project. And I'm guessing we'll learn more about the Franklin Project, but I just looked it up. And so their little quote I want to read to you guys because I thought it was really awesome. It's making a year of national service a cultural expectation, common opportunity, and civil rite of passage for every young American. So I think that parallels exactly what Service Corps is doing. So yeah, he's director of the Franklin Project, and he graduated from Boston College, but also went to Yale University. So that's Jason. That's just Jason for you. Okay. Up next, we have Ronnie Jesselson, and he was in the Israel Defense Forces. He's a veteran, or also called the IDF, and he's vice president of the Jesselson Capital Corporation. His education is from New York University, and I thought he has a lot of background in marketing. I'm looking at your experiences, and he's got Monday Night Football crew member for ESPN, so all the sports lovers might have some questions there. And I'm excited to hear about this Jesselson Capital Corporation because your last name's Jesselson. So I'm really excited about that. So this is our awesome board.
I spelled it wrong. It's Jefferson.
All right, guys. So before I begin the panel, I had the opportunity to read all your bios. You're all extremely impressive, and you are going to go off and do really amazing things in your life. So I can't wait to see you do it all. So I hope you find time to talk to me afterwards and grab an email and stay in touch because you guys are a really impressive crew. And I am really grateful to be here today, and I'm more grateful, to you guys for your service to our community, to our world, to America, to the state of Israel, Baruch Hashem, and to Matt for inviting me. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming.
You will always be my best friend. So I want to jump right in and have you guys just really quickly maybe spend a couple minutes just so we've had a little bit about your background. I'm wondering if you can talk 2 or 3 minutes about your military service, what you did, where you served, the bare bones, the basics. Everyone has a good sense of the differences in these 4 guys in their service.
Okay, I'll start. I was an infantry officer, which infantry, if you know the difference, there are a lot of different jobs in the military. So when you speak to military folks, they can do anything from administration to motor transport. Infantry are the guys that actually do the shooting and moving. So I started out as a lieutenant, and first I had a rifle platoon, which is guys carrying M16s. I'm sure you've seen in the movies. And then eventually I had a weapons platoon, which is bigger machine guns, mortars, and rockets. So I did that and then finished up as an XO, which is kind of like a VP of our unit, which is a company of about 100 people. So I was in Kosovo briefly for some peacekeeping back in 2001 when I was on a ship for 6 months. Marines often go on Navy ships for 6 months in various areas of the world, and then mostly training, and then I spent some time in the invasion in Iraq in 2003. So that's about what I did in the military.
I was a volunteer soldier in the IDF. I say volunteer because I'm not an Israeli citizen. I basically did roughly 2 years of service. First 7 months were broken up between training and then advanced training, and then the rest of my service I was on the front lines. I'd say the most known place that I was in, I spent a lot of time in Hebron, as well I spent some time in Jenin. I was a heavy ammunition specialist, means that, it's a nice way of saying I carried a very heavy gun, and it was probably hurt my back and my knees more than I needed it to. I then was able to, though that was more in training, and then I did some time being a radio guy, which was very impressive. I'm proud of because I'm not a native to Hebrew, so being able to get to the point where they were able to trust me at a position where I could actually be a radio guy meant that I was the second guy right behind my lieutenant to be his right-hand man, and that's about that.
Just as a quick side note, if you're not aware, Israel is one of the few, I think it's only one of 3 armies and militaries in the world that allow non-civilians to join. And Matt was also in the IDF. Too bad already up right now. Jeez.
So I basically did what Pat did, except like 6 years later, and like
Trying to say.
and like 600 miles north and west. Literally, I joined the Marine Corps right after BC. Became an infantry officer, went to Iraq, was in Al-Anbar, so way west from 2007 to 2008. Also did a MU, and then spent 4 months in Haiti after the earthquake there. So.
Cool. For the past 8 years, I've been a Green Beret. I kind of feel a little bit of education is probably necessary for that. Before you Wikipedia and asked me if I was a SEAL in the Army. I wasn't.
Think more Rambo.
Sure.
Way more.
And at its heart, what it's really about is the only force that we use to either help those who are oppressed in a regime overthrow the regime. And then when it's in place, we help maintain it and keep them from being overthrown by, for example, ISIS in Iraq. So that's essentially the job, and requires a lot of cultural knowledge, and I learned Arabic in the process and got to go to all the theaters you've heard of, like Afghanistan, Iraq, and also some other non-traditional ones as well. And that's been the past 8 years of my life.
Wow, amazing crew. So if Rhode Island decides to invade Connecticut tonight, we are going to be well defended with these guys. So I want to jump right into the real questions, and they're thought provoking, and I want you to really pour your heart out. It's off record in here. Let's start with what leadership means to you. You guys have had a unique opportunity to be leaders in the greatest military force in the world, and what I believe is also the greatest military force in the world. And I'm curious to know what leadership means to you in the context of a service person.
Well, I'd say that the military is one of the more difficult places for leadership because in a lot of environments and corporations, there's a lot of planning that can happen, and you execute the plan. In the military, the plan goes out the window as soon as you hit the ground. So you have to be smart, and leadership really is getting people to do things that could even cost their lives. So it's very intangible in a lot of ways. But it's probably the most difficult thing because you're asking people not just to execute an Excel spreadsheet, you're asking them to possibly die. So leadership is extremely critical in the military, and it's really just about communication and taking care of the people that work for you.
What does leadership mean to you?
To me, I would say that there's a degree of confidence instead of cockiness, because the best thing that I learned in the military was you can do whatever you set your mind to as far as small tasks and large ones, but you need to have faith to not be cocky, because once you have that ego, and I think that apply, and the reason I use this is it applies to everything in life, because you should never be ashamed to ask a question. You should never be ashamed to trust, and that was, I guess, the best lesson I learned in the Army, that a lot of people before me did these same jobs, and a lot of people after me will do these similar jobs. So knowing that confidence that you can do it, and it's not impossible to achieve, but at the same time not thinking you're all that special.
Yeah, so two things. So number one, one of my mentors says that leadership is a choice. Yeah, in a military context for sure, it's very obvious where that would be the case, but I found it in every context of my life. As a guy that's been a civilian now for a lot longer than I was in the Marine Corps. When you're leading an enterprise, you are putting yourself at the service of that enterprise. And no matter what moment you happen to be in, there's always a delta between where you are and where you want to be. And leadership is a choice to do whatever's required in the moment to plug that gap. If you're willing to make that choice and be at the service of your mission, it's impossible to do without the empathy to understand what that gap is between where you are and where you want to be, and how to motivate people to get there. So it's about a choice and about empathy. That's what I've learned, I think.
I completely agree with what Jay said. I also think that the choice can mean understanding the difference between management and leadership. And leadership is more of an emotional function that you can play, and that, to me, it kind of boils down to you eat last, and you let people on your team eat before you, and you ensure that their well-being is taken care of. And that's just kind of like the bottom line.
Who said the Army and Marines can't get along? I love it. So, let me,
Nobody's from the Air Force.
so I'm wondering if you could tell me about, talk to me about the advantages and disadvantages of having the military structure, and in some cases, for some of you, combat, as the context in which you learned about leadership and you emerged as a leader and you developed a leadership style.
Well, I would say that being a military officer or a non-commissioned officer is what, first of all, the schools are set up to train you to be leadership. So, you know, in a lot of jobs in the civilian world, you go out and you learn leadership on the fly, whereas you have structured training that teaches you what's expected of you and how to lead a team, no matter how small or big it is. So that's a benefit structurally. And I'd say the other thing is, because there's so much ambiguity and so many intangibles, there are things that you can't track in an infantry unit. So if you're a banker or a salesperson, you have your numbers that people are going to look at. They know whether you're good or not because you have your numbers. Or you have a P&L that you're managing if you're a business person. It's very difficult to tell how good an infantry unit is versus another one just by looking at it. So because they're intangibles, you learn leadership in the emotional way that you guys had said before. And so, that when you're in combat, all of a sudden, and I don't have a lot of combat experience, just a little bit, but when you're in combat, then you see how cohesive the unit really is. And that ambiguous situation, then you rely on all the things you've learned and the emotional connection you have with your troops, and it helps you get through the day.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that, and there's that value of working as a unit, and you start in the beginning of my service, at least. I wanted to laugh at the group of people that I was with. I'm like, I have no confidence in anyone here. But as you go through that experience together and you become a unit and you function as a unit, there's an exceptional value that you gain having faith in the person next to you, knowing how to operate as a group. And I think that goes well beyond the Army, and I think it's tougher to get that in real life, because so often you come from different backgrounds, and in the Army they try to break you down and build you up together. I mean, my day now does not start with me having to shine my shoes or shave my beard. So I already have a few extra minutes in my day of things that I didn't, that I had that were chores. And one of the best things that I gained from the Army was the schedule of knowing in a 24-hour day you can do equivalent of a 48-hour day, and knowing how to execute that is really beneficial.
I'll echo what Pat said. Probably the most straightforward, enduring lesson of having the formative experience in my early 20s be in the military is a heightened sense of comfort with ambiguity. But the thing that when I really ponder on it, that I carry with me is just being unafraid to love the people that I work with, and naming that and calling it actually love. And you hear relationships matter a lot. I've found since I've gotten out of the military, people are more reticent to have that level of intimate connection with colleagues. And again, just by the mere privilege that I got to have a really cool job right out of college, I learned that developing that deep level of intimacy with coworkers is really important. It's always served me well. So.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think combat is pretty great, really. I mean, I understand it's scary, you can die, but in that fear, you really tap into something that's very tribal and very human, which is just survival. And through that, you gain a really close bond with people, and then you understand what people are capable of too, because people step up for one another. Everyone is in on it. Everyone's functioning to their max capacity, which I feel like maybe a lot of people necessarily don't. And the advantage of being in the Army and the military at the same time is that everyone has a well-defined role and job, and you learn to free yourself to trust others to do their job. And I think that makes it probably a more flat leadership style, which is more effective when you go out into the real world.
I'd love to ask you to follow up. How would you tell these amazing fellows in the room because they're not going off to war, they're going off to a nonprofit. How can you impart upon them the lesson of learning to love those you work with more and learning to own fear and conquer fear? How can you impart that lesson to people that don't go off to the military? What would you say that they could do to learn that lesson, or
cause a calamity in your life?
Yeah,
I mean,
introduce some chaos. I mean,
everyone's been through similar stuff. You've been through a bad breakup. You've experienced something that you don't like, and it's all about how you deal with adversity, and you discover who